Today, David Lammy has announced major reforms to the justice system, which will see juries scrapped for crimes that carry a likely sentence of less than 3 years. Now, the Justice Secretary made the announcement in the Commons earlier on today.
First, I will create new swift courts within the Crown Court with a judge alone deciding verdicts in triable either way cases with a likely sentence of 3 years or less, as Sir Brian recommends. Sir Brian estimates that they will deliver justice at least 20% faster than jury trials.
Well, the Justice Secretary, Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick, he steamed in. He was quick to criticise the hypocrisy of Mr Lammy's reforms.
He found juries, and I quote, act as a filter for prejudice. But now he's become Justice Secretary, he's scrapping the very institution he once lauded. Which is it? Will the real David Lammy please stand up?
But with 12 prisoners having been accidentally released in the past 3 weeks alone, will this move actually stamp out the chaos in our criminal justice system? Well, I'm delighted to be joined in the studio by our political editor, Chris Verhoeven, and also by the man of the moment, the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. If I may, I'll start with you, Mr Jenrick, wasting no time there, having a good old dig at David Lammy. But let's focus on something which appears to be a major positional U-turn. 5 years ago, David Lammy couldn't get enough of jury trials. Suddenly, he's against the things. What's changed?
Well, he's become Justice Secretary, hasn't he? But you're right to say 5 years ago, the old David Lammy said that jury trials were fundamental to our justice system, fundamental to our democracy. And he wasn't alone back then. In fact, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has said in the past that every criminal trial should have the opportunity to be heard by a jury. And they were both correct. This is part of our rights. This goes back at least to Magna Carta. It's an important safety valve against an occasionally overbearing state. And now the government decides to cast it aside and scrap it. We all appreciate that there is a backlog in the courts. It's completely shameful that a serious case might not be heard for 4 or 5 years. But you don't resolve that administrative failure by the system by scrapping something that is at the absolute heart of our criminal justice system.
Are you concerned, the Free Speech Union are very concerned that the propensity to be found guilty is twice as likely for free speech offences, as opposed, if you have a judge as opposed to a jury? Cases like Lucy Connolly will be much more likely to see the inside of a prison cell if they go to Crown Court. Are you concerned about the impacts on free speech cases?
I am. At the heart of a jury trial is the fact that 12 ordinary citizens come together, they pool their collective experience of the world, and they apply their common sense. And sometimes that means that they have the opportunity to acquit somebody for something that might be reprehensible, might be wrong, none of us would condone, but which doesn't mean that someone should be in jail. And the Lucy Connolly example is right. Lucy Connolly pleaded guilty. Had she, however, gone before a jury, one can only question whether she would actually have been found guilty and ultimately imprisoned for 31 months. I suspect not.
Your personal data could be exposed right now without you even knowing it. And if you want it removed, use incogni.com/GB News in the description now and get 60% off an annual plan on us. Incogni reach out to the data brokers on your behalf and request that your information be deleted from their databases. And they'll keep sending removal requests to make sure your data stays gone. Sometimes your information ends up on strange, obscure websites that automated tools just can't reach. And that's why Incogni just launched their unlimited plan with a feature called Custom Removals. With this, you can submit any link where your personal information appears, literally paste in the URL, and their privacy team will investigate and work to get it removed. And getting started is super easy. Hit the link in the description, create an Incogni account, and tell them whose data you want removed. Grant them permission to work on your behalf, and then all you've got to do is sit back and relax. They'll keep you updated along the way. Incogni is totally risk-free for 30 days. If you try it, it's not for you, you'll get a full refund. So take back control of your personal data today with Incogni. Use our code GBNews at checkout via the link in the description, and you'll get 60% off an annual plan.
Chris?
You're saying in the House of Commons there, Robert Jenrick, that and rightly, David Lammy did say that he wants to keep the jury trials going. But that was back before the pandemic, when now there's 80,000 cases delayed to 100,000 by 2028. Surely he has to do some dramatic action to bring that down. But the worry of the civil liberties groups is it's not sunsetted. So we are literally ripping up Article 9 of Magna Carta forever. And that's been going since 2012-15. Should that be changed maybe in the House of Commons or more likely in the Lords? Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Look, if this was motivated purely by a desire to fix this immediate challenge that the criminal justice system faces, then why not sunset this? Why not do it for a couple of years and then return to the tried and tested historic situation? I suspect there's something deeper behind this, which is the fact that some in the Labour Party, not the old left that you saw in the House of Commons today, like Diane Abbott, but the kind of Blairite tradition, just don't trust ordinary people. They think that educated judges know best, that the rule of law means ruled by lawyers. And in fact, you might remember Tony Blair and Jack Straw tried to do exactly the same back in the day. They were thwarted by opposition on all sides of the House of Commons and the House of Lords. I believe we can do so again this time and preserve this, hand it on to our children and grandchildren.
A lot of our viewers are concerned, to be frank, they don't trust the judiciary, or at least they think the judiciary have a political mindset which is rather narrow, rather liberal, perhaps not reflective of the broader population. And isn't that the point of a jury? A jury is a balanced, broader spectrum, more likely to take in different walks of life, the working classes. Dare I say, if you're of a conservative bent, how many conservative judges are there? Are you concerned if it's just down to the judge themselves, their own politics might weigh on their decisions?
Well, I do trust ordinary people to come together, take this duty very seriously, weigh up the evidence and come to a commonsensical view. That's why this has survived for all these hundreds of years, because it commands public support. It's one of the very few opportunities that people have to be involved in the criminal justice system. It's a civic duty. It's something that enables people to understand how the system works and to talk to their friends and family members about it. It forces barristers in court to distill complex issues into simple day-to-day parlance in order to ensure that the victim, the defendant, the public actually understand the issues at the heart of the matter. And this is something, in fact, that David Lammy himself used to say. He did a review for the last government, the Lammy Review, in which he concluded that jury trials were less biased than judges. When you had people, for example, from an ethnic minority background going before a court, they were more likely to be treated fairly by a jury than by somebody from the judiciary, perhaps because of their background, who knows precisely. So most of the evidence shows that juries are good at coming to fair and reasonable conclusions, and that's why we should keep them.
Well, what would you do if you were in power? You mentioned 50 Crown courtrooms sitting empty in the Commons, 21, I think, 1,000 court days unused last year, is that right? Or 20, it's a big number.
That's right.
Was that enough to pick up the slack, or would you be doing something dramatic, maybe sunsetting what David Lammy is offering with juries?
Well, if all of the courtrooms in our country were fully occupied over the course of the last year, the court backlog would have gone down by up to 10,000 cases. In fact, it shot up by 10% over the course of the year. So step one, get the court sitting round the clock. That hasn't happened recently. In fact, the Lady Chief Justice, the most senior person in our judiciary, came to Parliament last week and offered the government more sitting days. But the government haven't accepted them on financial grounds. And that sticks in the throat for me, because how was Rachel Reeves able to come to Parliament yesterday or last week and say she's going to increase taxes, spend £16 billion more on benefits, spend £4 or £5 billion a year on asylum seekers, getting the backlog down there, housing and feeding them, and yet the government couldn't find a comparatively small amount of money to get the court sitting, fix this problem, ensure that we can have swift justice.
Robert Jenrick, may I get your opinion on another story which we're covering today, and that is Lord Hermer. Of course, this is Keir Starmer's Attorney General, has waded into the debate around Nigel Farage, alleged comments he made 50 years ago. Lord Hermer is demanding that Nigel Farage apologises. This hasn't even been proven to have happened. If there was any proof of it, presumably we'd have seen it by now. Why is the Attorney General, Sir Keir Starmer's man, getting involved? Does this, to you, feel like a politically motivated attack?
Well, no, I never condone any comments which were anti-Semitic, whether they were made today or 50 years ago. But Lord Hermer is the one that should be apologising for the things that he's done over the course of his life. Look at the clients that he's taken on: Shamima Begum, Jerry Adams, 9/11 and 7/7 terrorists. He always seems to be on the side of people who hate our country. And maybe he's siding with other members of the government to attack those on the right and try and shut down people who want to oppose the Labour government right now.
David Lammy has also weighed in on the same debate on the same morning. Call me a cynic. It feels like a joined-up campaign on Times Radio, demanding that Nigel Farage do the right thing and apologise. Why are they all joining up like this to have a go at Nigel Farage? I'll put it to you again. Is this a joined-up, politically motivated campaign to try and keep Nigel Farage out of power?
Well, look, I don't know what their motives are, but it sounds like a distraction tactic from what's really going on in the country right now.
Robert, you're a straight-talking man. Ask you a straight-talking question. Is this a joined-up campaign?
Well, they obviously don't like Nigel Farage, do they? That's very clear. But what they should be doing is answering questions on a disastrous budget, Rachel Reeves' refusal to resign for flagrantly misleading the public, and today, this attempt to U-turn, get rid of an ancient liberty that we've known in our country for 800 years of jury trials, which isn't even going to fix the problem, which is the court backlog. David Lammy, before Parliament today, ended his remarks by saying that even if he does all of these destructive reforms, he can only promise that he might get the backlog down by the end of this Parliament. So it's another failed Calamity Lammy experiment.
It's extraordinary how limited the scale of what they're doing and the lack of, by his own admission. I've got to ask you on another reform issue. Leah Nitchie, Chris Green, Jonathan Gullis, they're all off to Reform UK, making it, I think, 18 have jumped the ship, former colleagues of yours. Are you sad about this? Do you blame your current leader for them leaving? Why are they not standing again in the next election for your party?
Well, they're friends of mine. I am sad that they've chosen to leave the Conservative Party. They were good members of Parliament, and I hope they continue to serve in some capacity in public life. The Conservative Party's got to change and prove to the public that it can have their trust and confidence once again. I want the Conservative Party to be the natural home for every small C Conservative.
So why are they leaving?
In this country.
It's a judgment on Kevin Badenoch, who's doing pretty well at PMQs. We think in our world, doing pretty well performing at the dispatch box. But look at this. The former deputy chairman leaving and joining Reform UK.
Well, you'd have to ask them, Chris. I don't have a window into their souls, but I want to ensure, as does Kemi, that the Conservative Party is the home for everyone who shares our beliefs in a small state, strong borders, lower taxes, a true Conservative agenda for this country.
Do you think down the line there could be the most tactical deployment, some kind of allegiance between the Conservatives and Reform? There's a hell of a lot of talk about tactical voting to keep the Conservatives, keep Reform out from the political left. Should that be something that the Conservatives think about doing with Reform?
Well, Kemi and Nigel have both, in their different ways, been very clear that there's no pact or deal to be done. These are two different political parties, actually very distinct parties, and it's not in the interest of either to get into that kind of debate.
What if you were the leader of the Conservative Party?
Well, I'm not the leader of the Conservative Party, am I? That's ancient history. Kemi's our leader right now, and she's doing a good job, as Chris rightly said. She absolutely skewered Rachel Reeves last week.